Welcome to the Marketing Cloud Deep Dive webinar. I'm Kathy Lukeman with the Salesforce Foundation, and today we will be talking about how schools can craft that ultimate one-to-one student experience. This webinar is being recorded, and the Foundation will post that recording. Before I begin, just a word from our lawyers. While the Foundation is a separate entity from Salesforce, as we are a nonprofit organization, we will be talking about Salesforce's products, and Salesforce is a publicly held company. This is the Salesforce Safe Harbor Statement, which if you cannot read, and I would be surprised if you could, you can find on our website. Any purchasing decisions you make should be based on currently available technology. And just a little bit about Salesforce. Our customers have responded to our cloud computing offerings with lots of enthusiasm. Their success has propelled us to be #1 in enterprise cloud computing and #1 in CRM according to IDC. And while we're excited about our business momentum, our ongoing focus is really grounded in our firm commitment to innovation. That's why, in addition to being pleased with industry analyst recognition from IDC and Gartner, we're particularly excited to be cited by Forbes magazine as the world's most innovative company for 4 years in a row. Aside from having the most innovative and comprehensive technology, we've also led the way in terms of an innovative corporate philanthropy model. That philanthropy model is the 1-1-1 model. Here at the Foundation, it is our mission to help NGOs and not-for-profit higher ed institutions connect with their students in a whole new way by leveraging this best-in-class Salesforce technology. We accomplish this mission in 3 ways, basically. First and foremost, we remove the financial obstacles to using best-in-class technology by offering our solutions at a deeply discounted price to eligible nonprofit colleges and universities. Second, we reinvest those proceeds from our sales into our technology, our partners, and programs to support our grant strategy to build healthy communities across the globe. Finally, every Salesforce employee can dedicate 1% of their time to volunteering. That's 6 paid volunteer days a year that they can invest and support their communities and perhaps their alma mater in areas they're passionate about. To date, the Salesforce Foundation has over 23 nonprofit organizations using Salesforce. We've awarded more than 73 million in grants, and we've given 743,000 hours of service to communities around the world. Our model has been so successful that companies like Google, Dropbox, Workday, Yelp, those companies on the right-hand side there have also adopted it. That brings us back to the subject at hand. Products here. Higher ed using Salesforce products. Salesforce has a set of solutions for marketing and communications that help you manage all aspects of your marketing in the cloud. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Everything from Journey Builder, where schools can create highly relevant and timely personalized customer journeys, to marketing automation that allows schools to build and deploy campaigns using Salesforce data and exact target email, to analytics and more. With Salesforce for marketing communications, you can really plan and optimize the student experience, deliver that personalized content, and measure your impact. And we're showing that here. It's not just products, it's a full solution. You're going to be able to kind of leverage that student 360-degree view to optimize your journey. You're going to be able to personalize that content, delivering those messages at the right time with customized constituent journeys. And you're going to be able to track and manage and execute and report on those campaigns all from one location. To take us through that today and through our deep dive, I have 2 incredible presenters, and I'm thrilled to introduce them to you. First is Ravi Rajagopalan, and he is a senior solutions consultant for the Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Ravi has been working with marketing technologies and solutions for the past 15 years and he's been in social marketing for the last 5. Second is Vince Salvato. Vince is the Vice President of the Salesforce practice for Sierra-Cedar, Inc. His duties include everything from strategic vision and financial modeling to operations optimization and strategic partnerships. He's accountable for the overall management of sales, delivery, talent development, all kinds of things that are included in his Salesforce Sales, Service, Marketing Cloud offerings within the higher education space. He's worked with a ton of higher ed institutions providing overall strategy and roadmap related to implementing Salesforce across the enterprise. I am going to turn it over first to Robbie, and then we're going to hear from Vince. Let me try to make this change right now and change it to Robbie. There you go, Robbie. Do you have it?
Just 1 second. All right. I think I've just shared out my screen. You should all be seeing a view of the Salesforce Marketing Cloud interface. So at this point, I'm just going to give you an overview of the platform and dive into a few things that would be of interest. And I'll start off by saying that this is not a demonstration environment tailored towards higher education, but I will try to address the way the concepts would apply to higher ed, because I think the concepts that we've got in Marketing Cloud really apply to a wide variety of spaces, and we have customers in all sorts of verticals, including higher education. So what you're seeing here now is the Marketing Cloud interface. This is the one place you log into to control everything related to marketing communications. And we support a number of different channels here, and I'll just briefly review them. So email, of course, is one of our primary channels and probably the oldest one we have in the platform. We also support mobile channels, and that includes Mobile Connect, which is SMS, as well as Mobile Push, which is push into apps that you might have. We support things in the social space as well, social channels, including setting up landing pages, for things like Facebook, as well as Social Studio, which is our product that lets you both publish and engage on social channels, and I'll be diving a little bit deeper on that in a little bit. In terms of the web, we have a predictive intelligence, which lets you kind of track all the behavior of people visiting your website and suggest content to them based on the affinities that we develop on those people, and that works for both unknown visitors, maybe prospective students, as well as known entities who you have data on. And of course, data drives everything in the platform, so we've got a pretty rich capability around bringing data in and letting you use that data to do targeting and segmentation and triggering journeys. And speaking of journeys, that's what marketing automation is all about. That's at the heart of our platform, and we'll be diving a little bit deeper into that in a minute with Journey Builder, which is really about creating those one-to-one journeys that Kathy was talking about a little bit earlier. And before I get started going to some of these channels, I did want to mention one thing which I think is probably of interest to a lot of you who are listening now, which is the enterprise structure of the Marketing Cloud. So here, the demonstration I'm using is for a company called Northern Trail Outfitters, fictitious outdoor gear retailer. And I'm in the main account for Northern Trail Outfitters, but you can see here there's a couple of business units underneath it for the rewards program and also the children's line of products they have. And this concept can really be applied to any industry, and I would imagine, for a university, you might have that top-level account, and then underneath it you would have different business units for, say, College of Engineering, Business School, College of Arts and Sciences, whatever that might be. So that lets you create a lot of content centrally and then share that out with, the separate colleges so they can do their own campaigns without stepping on each other's feet. So I just wanted to mention that before we dive a little deeper into a few other things. So one thing I want to start off talking about is the data model within Marketing Cloud, and that might seem to be a little bit in the weeds, but I said it's really the data that drives everything that we do. It lets you do that very specific targeting, segmentation to different groups, and also triggering journeys. So here we're looking at the unified contact view within the Marketing Cloud, and at the center we have the contact. And around it, we have all the different sources of data we have on that contact. And of course, all the channels that we manage are automatically a part of this model. So we've got email data on people's click behavior on emails they received, mobile push data on mobile push messages they might receive, SMS messages, things like that. And then we can also incorporate third-party data sources as well, which is what we do with pretty much all of our customers, because all of our customers have additional sources of data on their members or customers, or in your case students and alumni. So we can bring in that data as well. And in the case of this particular retailer, they might have third-party tracking information, which they bring in as part of this model, as well as things like e-commerce data and retail transactions. So I just want to point out that all this data is brought together into a unified view of the contact, and that's used pretty extensively throughout the platform. And I'll just maybe briefly show you an example of one random record I pulled up from that contact model, and you can see we've got the different sources of data, system data, email address, email demographics. So all this data is available, so if you do need to go and drill down on a specific individual and see what information you have on them, you can get that all here as well. Now let's go and take a look at one specific channel, email. So I think that's one that a lot of you will be using. Here I'm on the overview page for the email channel, and I'm seeing some of the recent emails that have been worked on. And for Northern Trail Outfitters, it's things like promotional emails for Thanksgiving and Halloween, and an email on backpacks and other types of products they're selling. So these are all the actual individual emails. And then I can also see a look at the templates that are being used. And these are templates you can set up, so you can very easily allow non-technical people to create emails from a standard template that really maintains your specific branding. And I should add that everything in the platform is controlled by role-based security, so you can have people in different roles that have the ability to create and modify templates, and then maybe other people can only leverage templates to send emails, and then even that send capability can be another kind of permission. So you can have this tiered level of permission, so you're really kind of protecting your brand and image and making sure nothing goes out that doesn't meet your standards. And then also in email, we have this portfolio of content. So this is where you manage all your digital assets that go out in marketing communications. And it's very easy to upload all these and then drag and drop them into emails when you're doing that kind of creation. But let's go ahead and take a look at one particular email, just so you can see a little bit about what happens in the email process. So I'm going to go over to this one email called Abandoned Cart Low Value. So this is an email that Northern Trail Outfitters sends out to its potential customers when they're browsing the website and maybe they put some items in their cart and they didn't buy it. That triggers, in the case of Northern Trail Outfitters, it triggers a journey, and part of that journey is this email that goes out. And you can see it's nicely formatted with Northern Trail Outfitters branding. They've included a coupon to encourage these people to buy. And then there's this kind of block here, which is a recommendation block. And this is the kind of dynamic content you can put into your emails. And it can really be anything. It can be based on any of the data you have on your customers. So if you, say, have a prospective student that's interested in engineering, it can be engineering targeted content. If you have an alumni that's made a certain level of donation, it could be kind of a big donor piece of content that's targeting them. So really, all this content that you see in the emails can be dynamic, and it can change based on the information you have on the people looking at the email. And one nice thing is that you can test any of these emails against your actual data at any time. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now for this particular email. I'm going to do a send preview. And I'm going to just pick a specific a group of users, for Northern Trail Outfitters, and it's going to be the people that have abandoned a cart just recently. And it's taking a second to load, but all the data, as I mentioned before, that I've got on the platform is available to do this kind of targeting. So I'm going to just pick the users that have abandoned a cart yesterday, and I'll pick that first one and generate a preview. And now this is going to actually go into the data model and pull out some information, in this case the item that they put in their cart and didn't buy, and render it. So this is how this email will look for this particular individual. And I'm going to just cycle through a couple of these so you can see this changes as I go through each of these users. It's going to change the content. So all this content can be dynamic and very targeted based on any of the data you've got on your contacts. So that's a little bit about what could go into an email, and I want to show you some of the tracking we have in the platform as well. So I've come over here to the tracking area of some of the reporting that we offer, and I'm looking at that particular abandoned cart low-value email, and you can see these are the things that we track automatically for every one of these emails. So you can see the number of opens and clicks and forwards, and in the case of a retailer, conversions to buying, delivery rates, both hard bounces and soft bounces. And the other nice thing is you can actually overlay this click activity onto an image of the email itself. So this is a way you can kind of think about, what content is rendering nicely. It's taking a second to load here, but you'll see an image of the email with percentages over every link there. And for whatever reason, that's not loading this second. Let's give it one more try. There we go. So we got an overlay view, and it looks like this email might have just gone out to a few people, but you can see the percentages next to each link, so you can get a feel for how the layout might be affecting where people are clicking. And you can see this email view, or you can see the actual link view as well, and see the individual links that are being sent out to. And as I mentioned, in the case of retailers, you can also track conversions, although there isn't any for this particular one, it seems like. So it's a little bit on some of the reporting, and we do offer pretty rich reporting in addition to individual email tracking. You can create reports really based on any of the data we have on our system, and that can be set up with a drag and drop interface. And one final thing I want to show you is the Journey Builder part of the platform, and this is what I mentioned earlier. This is where you create those one-to-one customer interactions. So you really create these tailored journeys around anything that's of interest to you. And it, in the case of a retailer, as I mentioned, this abandoned cart concept is very popular. Someone abandons a cart, it triggers a whole journey, which we'll take a look at in a second. There's a post-purchase journey here. For higher ed, it could be, as I mentioned, things like a prospective student filling out a form on a website that can launch a whole journey as you guide them through the process of them learning more about your university. Same thing with maybe alumni donations. When someone donates for the first time, you want to really encourage them to be part of the alumni donation community, and you can have a whole journey around that as well. And you can see these are always targeted against goals, because when we want you, when you're creating these journeys, to always have a goal in mind and see how the journeys are performing, and then tailor the journeys to get closer to your goals. So you're seeing what percentage of people are above the targets that I set, and these targets are something you configure for your own journeys to be whatever you want, and the triggers for the journeys are things you configure as well. And I'll just go click into this abandoned cart journey so you can see a little more detail. So you can see here the triggers that someone abandoned a cart, and that came from the e-commerce system. And the goal here is that Northern Trail Outfitters wants 5% of the population to make a purchase after abandoning a cart, and they have a whole journey that they set up around that. And then you can see there are previous versions of this journey that they were running, so they've been iterating on this as they've gotten more information about how this journey is performing. And you can always see the live data on how many people are in each step of your journey overlaid directly on the journey itself. So you can see the number of people that are in each path and how many people have met the goal on this step. And the decision points here are all based, again, on data that you've got inside of Marketing Cloud. So in this case, there's a decision right here. If the cart total is less than a certain amount, they're going to go down different paths. There's the high-value path and the low-value path. So these decisions at any point in the journey are based on any of the data in the Marketing Cloud, and that's what really allows you to create these one-to-one interactions that, tailored to specific behaviors and real-time behaviors that you've got on people going through the journeys. So it's a quick look at Journey Builder, and then one other thing I want to show you is Social Studio, which I'd mentioned earlier, and as I said, that's the tool for publishing and engaging on social channels. So that's what we're looking at here. I've come over to the publish side of Social Studio, and you can see the calendar of all the social publications that have been scheduled and published in the past, or are scheduled to be published in the future. And you can get data on any of these things. So if I want to see, hey, how this particular Facebook post from Monday performed, I can click on it, and it's going to load that post and give me some metrics on it. So this is a kind of inflatable Volkswagen bus or something kind of promotional that Northern Trail Outfitters posted, and I can scroll down below and I can see the engagement summary. So I can see the number of likes and comments and shares and reach and a click breakdown. So you've got this information on each individual post. This, as I said, is the tool for publishing, so maybe I'll go ahead and just show you what that looks like. We can publish out to Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. I'm going to just show you what it might look like if you want to post a new tweet. I'll go ahead and do that, and this is also governed by role-based security, and you can have a number of different workspaces for your different organizations in your university or different colleges, and each one will only have permissions to publish on the handles that are authorized for them. So I've got permissions here to publish to the main Northern Trail Outfitters Twitter handle, and I can put in a message, it's a great day for hiking. And I can add media, images directly from my computer, but I can also get any of this from apps. I'm going to click into that and show you some examples. So that can be a number of third-party apps that we've got integrated here, things like TrendSpotter and Contera for trending content, Shutterstock and Getty Images for photography, or any of your own content sources as well. So here NTO Drive is an internal system for Northern Trail Outfitters that has a lot of content, and that's plugged in here as well. So we can, through our API, integrate with any other sources of content you have. And maybe I'll just give you a quick look at what it looks like. If you want to put some Shutterstock photography in there, you can go in there and search on hiking, for example. I do that, and I come up with a bunch of images that I can use, and then I can take that and just drag those over into my post. So it's a very easy way to add content. And then in terms of publishing, you can publish immediately or at some later time, put in your own vanity, link shortening URLs, and add in labels for tracking as well. And speaking of tracking, let me show you a little bit of what we track around the performance of these posts. So here I've come to the summary where I can see in aggregate how all my Facebook posts are performing and my tweets. And that's great for kind of overall feel for how they're doing. But I can go down to a more specific level as well. So if I want to know, just for my Facebook post, how each individual one is doing, I can click into that, and I can see for every post the reach, likes, shares, and comments. So you can get down to that very granular level as well. So that's a little bit on publishing, and then I just want to close by showing you the engagement piece as well. So I've clicked over to the engage side, and this is where you can set up these topic profiles to listen to any of your individual handles on channels like Facebook and Twitter, and you can search on any kind of keywords or terms as well. And you're seeing all of this in the stream, and depending on your permissions, you'll be able to respond or not respond here. You can do all the same things you can do in the native channels. So in the case of Twitter, you can reply, retweet, send a direct message. But if I click into this particular tweet, I can see some of the more enterprise workflow functionality that we've got built into here. I can set a status, a priority. I can assign this to a particular individual, and that assignment can be automatic based on rules that you configure. I can change the sentiment and classification. And then we've also got macros to integrate with the other Salesforce clouds. So if this particular tweet is something that might be a lead, it can be sent directly to Sales Cloud, or if it's some kind of a service issue, it can be turned directly into a Salesforce case. So these are the kinds of things you can do inside of the engagement side of Social Studio, and it's very flexible. You can set up a number of tabs with different topics, different topic profiles, and that's all part of the Marketing Cloud platform. So that was the last thing I wanted to show you in my overview, and at this point I will hand it over to our next presenter. Okay, Vince, you should have presenter rights.
Should have it. Thanks, Robbie. Let me see if I can present here. How's that look? Can you see my screen?
We can.
All right, excellent. Well, Robbie, thank you for that overview of the platform. I think that's a good intro into some of the different things you can do with the Marketing Cloud and how it can be leveraged kind of from a high level for institutions. I'm excited to talk today a little bit more about the Marketing Cloud and how we're seeing it used within institutions. It's exciting to me that we now have a tool, or even more so a platform, to engage with institutions, to where now you're able to change out from maybe traditional email campaigns and communication methods to really leveraging the Marketing Cloud to have these one-to-one journeys. The fact that I can really segment the communication to individuals or constituents or whatnot, and really have that kind of one-to-one marketing directly with them and with multiple channels. It's really changing the way I think institutions can communicate, and it's just taking it to the next level. We're very excited to work with the product with institutions to bring that to bear. So with that, I'll get into, I just want to talk today about a few things. One, integration with Salesforce and what that really means, and why you want to do that, and the power associated with it. Talk to maybe just a few journeys and campaigns that we're seeing in higher ed. Also want to touch on a few implementation considerations to take into account as you're looking into the Marketing Cloud and implementing it at your institution. Along with a few lessons learned, I wanted to give you maybe I think about 5 or so, just to think about again also as you're going through your implementation and thinking about how you can leverage the Marketing Cloud at your institution. And then I believe we'll have some time in the end for a few questions. So with that, let's get started. So from an integration perspective, the fact that Salesforce's purchase of ExactTarget a couple of years ago, I think it's great. One, it's a great platform. What's even been done so far to date, especially with Journey Builder and some of these other things in the Social Studio, is pretty amazing. But what we see is the power of really the integration with leveraging Salesforce along with the Marketing Cloud, that being your Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, and how it might be being used today to manage your constituents and have that 360 view. The native integration, latest in version 5, and really it's very simple. You don't need a developer or any type of middleware tools to do integration. The fact that it's a pre-built integration, admins can configure and install it, and you're up and running. You're then able to share data between the two systems, which is really where you see the benefit and the power of leveraging the offerings of the sales and service and Marketing Cloud together. It really gives you that 360 view of the constituent, and that's important so you can really start to look at building out those journeys and building out those campaigns to segment users and to leverage the platforms with the dynamic content and the reuse and a lot of the automation that's built in. And it really comes from ensuring that you have all the right data elements and you're syncing between the two, and the integration definitely helps with that. I would say another benefit is the one-stop shop for reporting. Ravi, you saw he had showed some sample reports and some dashboards. Well, you also have access to very similar information within Salesforce. So your users who are already used to the ease of use of the analytics and the reporting within Salesforce can now take the data that's coming over from the Marketing Cloud into Salesforce and have access to those same candid reports out of the box that you get, or developing your own reports using some of those data elements, which is very, very powerful. So we see that as a key piece. And probably one thing to also share, and this might come up again in the presentation, is just knowing your data. Knowing that where these data sources come from, even if it's data feeds that you have set up into Salesforce within the institution, and then that are being brought over that integration, or the data extensions you have set up and extending what comes out of the box with the Marketing Cloud or ExactTarget, and the list that you load in, just really knowing your data. If you don't, then you're just swapping out one technology for another, and I think the real benefit is having that data and leveraging that data to really, change how you communicate, change how you reach out to the constituents, to your prospects, to, your alumni, to the corporate relations, to everything across the board, and it makes a huge difference, and that's a huge value in leveraging, the platforms together. I want to quick show a screenshot of just the integration setup. Once you have that integration in place, again, an admin can handle that. You have access to an email sends tab within ExactTarget, and it's again an easy way to set that integration for you to have between the two systems and start leveraging that data. I did want to go through a few maybe journeys and campaigns that we're seeing to kind of bring back to what Ravi had shown from a demo perspective, and think of how you can also then leverage the platform, some of the things you're doing. We see a lot of work with obviously events, just sending out maybe communications for recruitment events. And what's different about this is that the fact that we can leverage dynamic content. The fact that we don't have to send out one email to say, hey, come please, as a prospective student, please, come check this out, or come and check out this session or this event that we're going to have, and then send out another one that's, okay, let's send out now a reminder because we're getting close, and then check to see if they did attend, and if they then send out yet another, thank you. What we're able to do with the journeys and the journey builders is really change how that's done, using a journey to automate that with some of the dynamic content, so where I can build out a single journey, and I can determine those who maybe are already enrolled, and maybe they get sent an extra event, or they'll have extra sessions, or maybe those that are on scholarship will have a special dinner. I can use that same journey to interact with all these different students, but in the same way. So just setting up the segmentation of the users that I'm doing. So after the event, I can then say, if you intended, a day after, automatically send a thank you. If you didn't end up attending, we automatically send out an email saying, hey, sorry, we missed you. Here's the next event. And really leveraging the automation that is built into the platform. Some other things around maybe pre and post events, as far as reminders ahead of time. Again, just staying on top of it and reaching out to them as much as you can, and automating that process. Athletics is a good use case to where we talked about knowing the data and ensuring you have that additional data that you can act upon. Athletics is a great example to where you could look at purchase history. Are they season ticket holders? Do they go to certain games where we're playing a rival institution? How can I then send them specific things to upgrade or buy additional packages or things of that nature? So I can leverage the data that's coming in even from the Salesforce side, and using that to target my campaigns against. So very, very powerful. And also we have some institutions that are just using it for internal, currently enrolled students and faculty and staff. Holiday outreach type campaigns, virtual holiday cards, different announcements and newsletters. What's interesting here is, again, the fact that I can have the single platform to where I can even segment out newsletters for specific colleges or schools or announcements of that nature, and I can automate it within the platform. So some powerful stuff. A quick example here of a journey, and Ravi showed one also, but to keep it very, very simple, you can easily set these up to where, an example of sending out the email to someone, hoping that they then either click on it and respond. You can base the journey and base the interactions on a couple different things. Some three maybe critical things are based on dates, when I want to send things out. I want to set the campaign out in the future to set it for this date. And then based on whether someone reacts or not over a certain period of time or time interval. Maybe you give them a few days. If they don't do something, let's send something back out. or the fact that I can, send out additional communications through channels based on behavior. Did they click on this? Did they go to the link or whatnot? I can have that all flow together, and it's very, very simple to set up. Again, this is a simple example, but you can see that very easily you can get up and going with the platform, building out those journeys, and just automating a lot of the email communication that maybe you have set up today with a different tool. Some considerations I wanted to touch on to just kind of think about as you're looking at the platform exact targets and using it as your tool. Some of the things around maybe marketing and governance. A couple things that you'll realize. Within exact target, you can use a unique identifier as kind of the key. As long as every record has that particular field, whether it be a student ID, email address, or something else, maybe a global user ID, that's fine. But exact target has kind of built in what's called a subscriber key, and you just really have to think strategically where you're going and how the implementation is being done, whether it be an enterprise instance that the entire institution is going to use, or is it segmented and whatnot. But any one of the email addresses or other fields you use is it's fine. But once you switch over to what's called a subscriber key, you can't go back. And so there's some ramifications there when you think of complexities of, am I using multiple Salesforce orgs with a single instance of exact target? Some bigger issues arise that we've run into around kind of master data management and who owns what data. So just something to think about. Once you get to subscriber key and that's what you use, you can't go back. So also something to think about from a larger perspective is data model. Knowing that I can extend the standard object within exact target with my data extensions, and if I have that integration with Salesforce, and obviously you have custom objects and whatnot in Salesforce and things you want to track, and really think about how you want to use the various data to segment your lists and your campaigns and whatnot. Take the time and think about that up front. The designing of that, I think, is very key. I don't think you want to rush into an implementation, just set some stuff up quick so you can get some emails out. I think it's right to take the time and really kind of model it out so it's going to work for the whole. Who really is using this the platform, again, whether it be multiple schools or whatnot, or the entire institution, so it works for everyone. And that ties into kind of field names and data types. Also ensuring that as you're building out that model, you have a good idea of a good understanding of the field names. You want to duplicate data with different field names. The fact that one department might call I don't know, student ID or something different for whatever reason. The fact that you're having duplicate data with multiple field names, you don't want to go down that path. And that ties directly back kind of that data model, and just have that understanding. Security and role is also key. The fact that you can have that roll up through, Robbie kind of showed it through the different business units, so you can kind of have that delegated administration. So you can have a single instance, and having different schools and departments and colleges leverage it, which is very powerful. But making sure you have those designations and profiles set up correctly so it can be used. With that, also making sure you have those key stakeholders from the various departments that are involved with using the tool. The fact that you want to make sure there is escalation procedure in case there's any issues or conflicts as far as communications either going out or going back to the model or adding additional fields. Who can potentially resolve those issues and make a decision to move forward versus being in kind of a wait status. So it's kind of very important, some things that to take into consideration when moving forward. And also integration, and I'm going to mention this earlier, is just knowing your data, right? Really understand where the sources are coming from, kind of who owns that data, what's the source of that data. If you don't, then Again, this comes out to you're using this powerful platform to just send out emails and communication, and that's not really what you want to use it for. You really want to be able to use the behavioral data and use the data you're getting back from the system, from the interactions, along with the biodemic data from maybe your student information system that's loaded into Salesforce and that comes across. You want to be able to leverage that data. I think that's probably one of the most important points to leveraging the platform correctly and getting what you need out of it. So we'll move on to lessons learned. I wanted to share with you just a few here that hopefully you can look into and leverage. The first is utilizing the ExactTarget Academy. Once you have ExactTarget and have an account, you then have access to log into the Academy, which there's online training, and it's great. And it covers all different topics around email, data, your integrations, journey builder, all the different topics you saw, Robbie touch on, and so take advantage of it. It's there if you have access. So please go use it. To go find it, if you need, just feel free and Google ExactTarget Academy, and you'll see it within a few links there. Another thing to kind of learn or to think about is just the Marketing Cloud terms. Depending who's using the system or the tools and things that they came from, ExactTarget obviously it's within the tool has its own specific kind of terms and whatnot, but really it helps to make sure everyone's on the same page and everyone's speaking the same language. ExactTarget or the Salesforce Marketing Cloud has out there a great a glossary of terms. If you don't want to come up with your own, go ahead and Google it. It's out there. I think it's a great start for everyone to kind of get familiar and get a better understanding again, so that way you guys are talking the same language and everyone can work together from different departments. You also have the ability, here's an example of a glossary that's been put together to help with training specific and for either an institution or specific departments and schools, to where you can take a lot of the terms, things like that are being used, and you can develop your own if you'd like, but something that's very valuable. Another thing to think about is plan for IP address warming. For those who maybe not heard the term, what it is when you switch over to ExactTarget, it's another email automation tool that's going to be sending out communications. Typically, you have an option of going on a shared IP address or a server that's going to be sending out these communications, or you have an option to purchase your own IP address. Depending on the volume and sending out, it typically makes more sense for institutions to buy their own IP address. Well, that's great, but as a new IP address, you want to make sure that you're not flagged as an email server that's sending out a ton of spam. So depending on the volume, things of that nature, there's kind of a warm-in period. Roughly, it's about 30 days, give or take, depending on what their initial sends out, initial communication that you send out. To again make sure that you're sending out to clean email addresses in the beginning. Maybe have a ramp-up period where you're working with a few departments that know the email addresses are valid. Maybe some internal communication so things aren't going to get bounced. And that way, your IP address is not going to be flagged as a spam address. And so when you do, after the 30+ days or so, when you do start sending out your more mass communications, that everything's going to be okay. There is a document online specific to this also that gives you some best practices, so something to definitely check out as you're new to the platform. Also, different types of lists. Knowing this within kind of ExactTarget, your publication lists and your suppression lists. Right? A publication list, again, is a way for you to segment your contacts and whatnot to be leveraged in a campaign, so you can send things out. Obviously, you can set these up ahead of time. These want to be dynamic. You want to take the time to set these up properly so you can get reuse out of them versus setting up all these different campaigns or journeys that are very, very specific. You can leverage them to be dynamic and get reuse out of them. I think that's a key point as you're putting them together to think about how you can leverage, so you're not creating either duplicate campaigns or creating additional work that you can leverage the platform for to do that. And then Expression List again is kind of those that don't have a status, or they're not a subscriber count. They're ones that obviously folks you don't want to send out to. They've opted out for whatever reason as a whole, and so we want to make sure we're not sending emails to them. Which kind of goes to this last one, lesson 5, is kind of the unsubscribes. There's kind of 3 levels. That being global, which ExactTarget actually manages. They get feedback and stuff like that from different complaints and different things to where they manage that list. You don't have control over that, and so for some reason, if you have a contact or something that's in there, when things get sent out, ExactTarget will take over. You then have your master list where folks are unsubscribed from everything that you send out from your institution. And then you have kind of the list level where it can be managed through what's called a subscription center, which I'll show a screenshot of. Subscription center is built into ExactTarget. You can brand this for your look and feel of your institution, so you just come to it, they know it's you. What's really powerful about this is you then, instead of having someone completely opt out altogether because they didn't like a few things that were sent, they can come here to opt out, and they can actually see all the different lists that you have, whether it be institution newsletter from a whole, or breaking out by department or schools or colleges, and maybe they see some things they didn't even know were available, and they can opt in or out of them here. To control that. So hopefully you have an opportunity to still grab their attention and keep them on the list versus a pure opt-out, which is a good thing. So you want to try and stay in communication with them. I think with that was my last slide, and I will now turn it back over to Kathy.
Thank you, Vince, and thank you, Robbie. If you want to switch that back over to me, I will show my screen again, and we'll get right into some Q&A. But I wanted to say, hey, Vince, thanks for that tip on knowing Marketing Cloud terms. I'm guessing there's some folks on the line and on the webinar who will benefit from that, especially that search, because you definitely used some great marketing automation terms that some we never heard of today. And so that was an awesome tip. Well, let's go to some questions. Way back in the beginning, Robbie, you had talked about an example with the shopping cart being abandoned. And we have a question that asks, does your store software somehow have to be linked to Salesforce for Salesforce to know when the shopping cart is abandoned?
Yeah, so in the case of that abandoned shopping cart, that's actually part of our predictive intelligence functionality, which basically puts a little bit of tracking code on your website, and it tracks everything, including browsing behaviors, purchases, and abandoned shopping carts. So that's all data that goes directly into Marketing Cloud, and then it can automatically trigger that abandoned cart email. So that's the way it happens if you are using predictive intelligence. But as I talked about earlier, we can bring any data into the data model for Marketing Cloud. So if you are tracking any other sorts of behaviors that you would want to trigger a journey, you can track that in whatever fashion you're tracking it, send that data into the Marketing Cloud data model, and then we can use any of that data in the data model to trigger those events for journeys.
Perfect. So I have another question, and this could be to either one of you, but I think this is something that you covered, Vince. We have a question that says, we manage lots and lots of lists, and we don't want a single preference center that exposes everything. Is it possible to manage multiple preference centers or have these customized per user or per role?
That's a good question. I believe, I might actually have to go to Robbie on that. I believe it is.
So, Robbie, can you chime in on that?
Yep, yeah. So we definitely have customers creating their own custom preference centers, and I think that might fall under the category of dynamic preference centers. So based on who you are, you're going to see different sets of preferences that you can select, and that's something we see our customers implementing.
Awesome. We have another question, and it sounds like they're looking for some clarification. If you purchase this license, will anyone be able to see everything for the instance, say the recruiting piece or the grades piece? Is it like a one-stop shop?
So it sounds like that's a question on the licensing of all the different pieces of functionality, maybe. So I showed you a few different things in the platform. Some of those are licensed separately, so things like Social Studio and Predictive Intelligence. Those are components of the platform, but they're licensed separately from, say, things like email. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but yeah, different components of the platform, while they are all part of the core platform, they are licensed separately.
Awesome. So here's another question that we have, and this is more of a clarification as well. When the emails are sent out, are the emails sent through Salesforce using ExactTarget, or do they send them through ExactTarget using Salesforce data?
Well, this is Ravi. I'll answer that. So any emails sent from Marketing Cloud are going through Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and maybe the other part of the question is, what if you send an email from the Sales Cloud or Service Cloud interface using the ExactTarget Marketing Cloud integration? And the answer is that would also be sent through Marketing Cloud, but your interface for doing that is within the Sales Cloud or Service Cloud console.
Great. And can you tell me, just as a point of further clarification, is that data, once it's sent, stored, let's say, on the contact record, and what types of information would you see on the contact record if it is? So all email behavior is part of that contact model. So the clicks and opens and anything that the user did, that would be part of the contact record, and that's available for creating your targeted lists for sending emails or triggering journeys or any kind of segmentation, if that's a question. It is. Oftentimes we in the past have had to kind of maintain two different systems. It was hard to integrate that data back in. So it sounds like you're saying with the Marketing Cloud that's integrated right into the contact record, right in our CRM.
That's right. It's part of the contact model in Marketing Cloud. And then maybe just to help clarify, Vince had mentioned the native integration with Sales Cloud and Service Cloud. So what that means is that CRM contact information you have in those clouds is also automatically part of that contact model in Marketing Cloud for doing marketing communications.
So that's really the power of the integration. That's awesome. Yep. Here's another question. It's around kind of a common limits question that we get often with the Sales Cloud. What happens if we want to send more than 1,000 emails per day using the journey response emails?
I'm not sure what journey response means, but we handle extremely high volumes of emails in Marketing Cloud. One of our bigger customers that does flash sales sends 5 million emails in 5 minutes, so we can handle extremely high loads. I don't know if there was something else to that question, but there should be no scale issue if it was about scale.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, we do run into those limits a lot, so that's great.
Right. I think this is Vince. I think that's from people transferring over from typically using Sales Cloud or Service Cloud to send out maybe some of the lower volume email. I think it is kind of a big difference in switch of thinking that from the Marketing Cloud, the limits are not there. You're limited more so probably of the messages that you're licensed to send, but it's completely separate, and the volume can be quite high.
Hey, Vince, as well as you're talking about that, can you talk a little bit more about what if a school already has an email automation tool, and they want to move to the Marketing Cloud. What do you have to do to help schools make that transition, especially as it relates to their data?
Right. So we've done that, and we transferred over some couple different systems, like maybe a Silver Pop, which is pretty popular, and even from maybe the advancement side or alumni with iModules. And so one thing is just obviously the power of the platform and putting all the data together. Right. The fact that a lot of these systems might be kind of siloed, or you need to build some additional integrations. SilverPop has some integration back into Salesforce, but it's nowhere near what we can do with the Marketing Cloud and Salesforce with the built-in integration. So it's just a matter of really looking at what the current kind of business processes are in some of those campaigns. Again, what we see, there's a lot of manual steps. So again, we don't want to just do a lift and shift, right, where we're just taking exactly what they're doing and doing it the same way with the exact target. We really want to say what are the campaigns, what they're doing, how can we look to leverage the platform, the dynamic content, the data extensions to segment the users to really help automate those. And we've seen some crazy results as far as something that's maybe 20 manual steps to where now it's one automated maybe even journey. And then you mentioned the data is just ensuring where we're getting that data from initially with the older systems. Is that already being be integrated into Salesforce and then integrated over into ExactTarget automatically and leveraging what we have. So definitely doable.
Great. I have another question here from our participants asking specifically, the school is going to be managing 2 separate Salesforce orgs. And if they want to move forward with using a subscriber key system, would the separate orgs need to have separate instances of Marketing Cloud? Robbie, maybe that's something you can address?
Yeah, well, we'd have to take a look at exactly what's going on with all your data, but at the moment, I believe that Salesforce, Sales Cloud or Service Cloud integration is for a single org to integrate with an instance of Marketing Cloud, but we'd have to look into the details of that and understand better how we can map that properly.
Right, and I'll add on to that. I think that's a current limitation, but back to Safe Harbor, I know one of the features upcoming, I don't have a time frame to give, is that to out of the box be able to leverage a single instance of ExactTarget with multiple Salesforce orgs.
That's true. That is in the roadmap.
Right. That's coming, but I will tell you, we've dealt with that at a couple places, and it's something we're looking at the data and really knowing kind of the sources and looking at maybe even a master data management solution is important to that. I think it just goes back to what's the overall sources of data, what's going on, and what's the right way for kind of an integration strategy between all of them, and take the time to do it right.
Thanks for that. We have time for maybe one more question. And we heard kind of a reference about getting started quickly. Can you talk to us, perhaps, Vince, about what it takes to get started and kind of what the factors would be on extending that time frame from quickly to something doable? What do you normally see?
Sure. So obviously Robbie showed the platform. It's quite easy to get up and running and get things going. I mean, it's you're talking probably weeks versus months and years. I think it though depends on what stage you're at with whether it be the ExactTarget implementation that's starting new and do you already have a Salesforce implementation up and going. Or an org up and going, and how set is that, and those two working together. So I think it kind of really depends where you're at in those stages. Again, we saw the power of being able to use both of them together to really drive the interaction, that communication is very important, and so. That probably goes back to an ExactTarget Enterprise implementation and potentially a Salesforce Enterprise implementation, which is a much longer process. But because of how the platforms are done and how you can rapidly develop in both and have more of a quick turnaround and the phased approach, you're talking months versus years for an implementation.
Perfect. Thanks so much to both of our presenters, Ravi Rajagopal and Vince Salvato. And I wanted to take the last second, you can see I kind of switched to this earlier, to talk about